The official box office numbers for Saturday are out, and Avengers Endgame earned an estimated $6,511,000. It was in the number 3 position in the US box office. John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum was number 2 with $8.9 million, and Aladdin was number 1 with $29.6 million. On Sunday, Avengers Endgame is estimated to get $6,105,000, which brings its US domestic total to $798,172,736. And the total foreign box office money for Endgame through to Sunday is $1,879,300,000, which brings its worldwide total to $2,677,472,736 so far. And so this still leaves only one question, the one question we've had for quite a little while now: can Endgame earn more money than Avatar? According to thenumbers.com, Avatar had a total of $2.776 billion, which means Endgame is less than $100 million behind Avatar right now. It only needs $98,872,543 more dollars to earn more money than Avatar. So can it get another $100 million? So if you look at our chart to begin with the US domestic totals, we have once again Star Wars The Force Awakens, Avengers Endgame, Avatar, Avengers Infinity War, Jurassic World, and Star Wars The Last Jedi. And all of them are basically meaningless except for the top two. We've got The Force Awakens and we have Endgame, and Endgame is just slightly moving a little bit off Force Awakens. And so Endgame is definitely not going to get the $936 million that Star Wars The Force Awakens earned, but we can use the Force Awakens earnings to try to project out what Endgame will actually get. So that's the only film we have even close to it to try to use to predict what kind of money it may in fact earn. And if we look at the raw numbers here with Force Awakens and Endgame, day 30 is the Saturday, day 31 is always projected out the Sunday, so day 31 is really the day we're on right here. And Endgame has a total right now of $798 million. I did predict it'll have a little bit under $800 million at this point in time, and that's been fairly true for the last couple of weeks. So the predictions of where Endgame will end up, which is basically using the Infinity War ratios, have been fairly good so far. So it's actually earned money in the last 2 weeks in a fairly well predicted form. Before that, definitely not. It was breaking all kinds of records. It was all over the place. But for the last 2 weeks, it's earned money pretty much in line with what Infinity War actually earned. But if you look across to Force Awakens, we can see the Force Awakens is just earning a little bit more money every single day compared to Endgame. And down the bottom in 1 week's time, The Force Awakens was on $879 million, massive amount of money. And I think if Endgame continues the way it's going, it'll have $817 million in another week's time. So that's where we'll be at. So if we actually use the ratio that's going on right now between The Force Awakens and Endgame, I think Endgame will end up with around about $833 million in total. Okay, a week ago I said I thought it would get about 831. 2 weeks ago I thought it would get $835 million, and before that I thought it was about 850. But the $830 million mark, 835, that seems to where most of my predictions have been going for the last few weeks. So I think that's probably a fairly good estimate to use. But right now, if I need an actual specific number here to see if we can get this $98 million, I think Endgame's looking at getting a total of $833 million in the US domestic market. And here's a little chart here showing the same information out to next week. So we've got the Force Awakens total in blue, we've got the Avengers Endgame total in green, and then the red little bit projecting out of the green, that's where I think it'll end up in a week's time. So that's where the $817 million is. That's where it'll line up compared to Star Wars The Force Awakens. And so if we now try to look at the foreign market, how much more money can we expect from the foreign market? Can we get to this $98 million extra? Here is the Chinese box office for Saturday. We got $7.12 million for Aladdin. It was the number one film. But if we look down the list here, we'll notice that Avengers Endgame isn't even in the top 10. So Avengers Endgame may not even be showing in China anymore. I'm sure it probably is showing a little bit, but it's basically earning no money. The number 10th film here earned $0.13 million or $130 million. So Endgame at the very least earned less than $130,000. So we're not going to get any more money from China to really help us towards this $98 million total. And this chart here shows the difference between the China and the US box office for Endgame. So we can see that they were fairly neck and neck. China did have a little head start because it was sort of released 2.5 days before the US, but they were earning very similar amounts of money until they weren't. China basically just collapsed, and then it's just flatlined out for the last several weeks. So the amount of money that China has actually earned has been just dropping, and now it's somewhere under $130,000. They've also revised down the amount of money it's actually earned. So 3 times now they've revised down the figures. They chopped about $7 million off a few weeks ago. They chopped $10 million off the other week, and they've just recently chopped another $7 or $8 million off the total. So not only is China not earning much money anymore, they're actually pulling the total down. Every time it got to around about $600 million, it kind of went over it, and then they pulled it back down to about $600 million, and then it got over and they pulled it down. So some strange things going on with the Chinese box office, but nonetheless, there's no more money to come out of China, and this is the story coming out of most of the foreign markets, unfortunately. So China has died off quicker than the other markets, so the other markets will earn more money, but there's basically nothing coming out of China anymore. So there's no more money that we'll be earning for Endgame, or relatively no more money out of the Chinese box office. And the last thing we can look at, because the Chinese numbers aren't being particularly helpful to get to this $98 million, is what are the total foreign earnings week on week from Sunday to Sunday. So the first Sunday, on the first opening weekend, we had $866 million. And then the second Sunday, the total was $1.5 billion, which was a difference of $702 million. The figure you can see in the middle column here. The next Sunday, the total, or the next week's total to the Sunday, was $193 million, which was a 72.5% drop. Then the next week after that, it got $82 million in total for the whole week, Sunday to Sunday in the foreign market, which was a 57.5% drop. And last week when I went through these numbers, I said if it gets another 57.5% drop, which would be about $34.5 million, it can't earn enough money to beat Avatar. Well, it just got a 57.0% drop, pretty much the same thing. It only earned $35.3 million estimated right now in the previous week to week for the Sunday. So that means it really isn't going to get enough money, I don't think, to be able to beat Avatar's total. If it gets another 57% drop in the next week, it'll earn about $15 million, and then again another 50 or 57% drop, it'll probably get like $7 million and so on. Basically, it'll be lucky to get another $35 million from here on out. Okay, so it just got $35.3 million for the previous week. For the entire run, it's looking like, if these numbers are correct, and if they're not revised up on Monday, it's looking like it probably won't get another $35 million in the foreign market in total for the next couple of months, or however long it actually stays into all of the movies for. And once again, I think it'll get $833 million in the US domestic market, and it's on $798 now, so that's another $35 million. Now, that's just a coincidence that it just happened to earn $35 million in the box office foreign at the same time, but I think we're looking at another $35 million in total for the US domestic market, and I think if we're lucky, we'll get another $35 million in total in the foreign market. So that means 35 and 35, $70 million extra right now would be my estimate as to what it'll actually earn. And it needs $98 million to beat the total from the numbers.com for Avatar. And the total on the numbers.com, that's $11 million less than what the Avatar total is on Box Office Mojo. So I'm using the shorter or the smaller figure here. So it is $11 million less than what the Box Office Mojo figure says that Avatar actually earned. That's the same figure that most places cite, but when you look at where they got their figure from, they just got it from Box Office Mojo. So there's not really a lot of other examples of what the figure is other than they just go back to Box Office Mojo and use its number. Box Office Mojo's number is probably correct, but I'm using the smaller number right now. And once again, I think it needs $98 million to beat that figure, and it's looking like it'll probably get about $70 million. So where can I be wrong? Okay, is there anywhere that more money could come out of? My figures, are they grossly out here? It's getting pretty close here. Again, I'm saying 70 million needs 98. It sounds kind of close. Where maybe could it be wrong? Well, if you look at the US market, I am basing it on the sort of Force Awakens ratio, because the Force Awakens and Endgame, they're just the two films that have earned the most amount of money compared to each other. But another comparison we could maybe make is we could look at Infinity War versus Endgame. And here are the raw numbers here. Endgame on the left, Infinity War on the right, starting from a couple of weeks ago. And what was happening was Endgame had a lot more money it was earning, but the way it was holding on to the money was a little bit worse than Infinity War. It was going around about 5 to 10% worse every day. So it was earning more money every day, but the way that Infinity War retained its money was a bit better. But what happened as of about 2 weeks ago, and this is from the Monday 2 weeks ago here, is they started earning around about the same amount of money. So if you look at the top figure here, or the second figure, the top figure is the totals so far, but the second figure, we got the $4.7 million for Endgame, $4.6 million for Infinity War. Then on the Tuesday, Infinity War actually out-earned Endgame for the equivalent time, $6 million versus $5.7, and then it out-earned on the Wednesday, and it out-earned it on the Thursday. And then at the green section, the 3 green days, that's the weekend days, Endgame earned slightly more on the weekend. So that was the Friday, 7.4 million versus 7.3, 12.9 versus 12.7, 9.5 versus 9.3. Very similar figures there. It out-earned Infinity War on the Monday, but then it kind of earned similar on Tuesday. It earned similar on Wednesday, and then it earned a little bit less on Thursday, and then it actually earned less money on the weekend we've just had. So, or in other words, they're very close to each other right now. So instead of looking at the percentages, what we could look at is just how much more money did Infinity War actually get. So Infinity War, at this point in time on the Sunday, it had a total of $622 million. And if you look at the top in the blue highlighted section, it got a total of $678 million, which means from this point in time onwards, Infinity War earned an extra $56 million. So instead of looking at ratios and seeing what Endgame's earning compared to Infinity War's ratio or Force Awakens ratio, we get to say now it's earning the same as Infinity War. Okay, it may have earned more money earlier, but from now on, for the last 2 weeks, it's kind of earning pretty much what Infinity War is. So maybe it'll earn the same amount of money as Infinity War earned from here on out. So maybe it'll get an extra $56 million from here on out. So I just said I think it'll get an extra $35 million. But again, looking at this, it's possible because it's sort of earning money in line with Infinity War. Maybe it'll earn an extra $56 million from this point in time. And so if we add $56 million onto the 798, we get a figure of $854 million. Okay, so $854 million. That could still be a possibility that Endgame earns. So that's $56 million for Endgame to earn instead of the $35 million, which I just said earlier. And as I also said, I don't think in the foreign market it'll get more than $35 million more if this continues to go at the rate it kind of is. So it might not get more than $35 million more. So let's just say it gets $35 million in the foreign market and it gets $56 million in the US market. Well, what's 56 plus 35? Okay, we get 91. And obviously 91's less than the 98 we need, but could I be out by $7 million in the foreign market? Of course I could. So it's very easy to think we could get another $7 million there. So this is still doable. Again, my best estimate right now is I think we're going to get $35 million more in the US market, and it's done. It's not being Avatar. But definitely could be wrong, and I can certainly see a pathway that it's going to earn the same kind of money Infinity War did. I could see that the foreign money could just split a little bit more than I think it will, and so it can still get there. Now, the next question after that is, can it get another $11 million over the 98 to beat the box office mojo total? Well, yes, that is still possible, but it needs just a little bit more to go its way. So I don't think it's necessarily impossible, but I would, if I had to put money on it, I'd say it won't do it. Okay, if someone asked me just to put a bet down with equal odds, I would say it can't beat Avatar. It's not going to beat Avatar. I'm not saying it's impossible. Definitely isn't impossible, but it's looking very difficult to get. And I have said that for several weeks now. This is a much harder total to get to, and now we're getting closer. It just seems silly. Really, it can't get another $98 million. That's nothing. But as we saw with the Chinese money, it's just not showing anymore. People aren't seeing the film. They've seen it. Everyone's already seen it, and it's not really happening. The US market is still holding up. It's still getting money. All of the other foreign markets are dying off very quickly. China has died a lot quicker than all the rest, so the Chinese money's done. But the other markets, they're just not there anymore. So if, let's say, roughly speaking, a third of the money was earned in the US, a third was earned in China, and a third was earned elsewhere, well, China's gone. So a third of the money's gone now. So can you get the extra money from all of the other foreign markets or from the US market? So again, I think it's probably not going to happen. It's still doable. This can happen, but if it does happen, it's going to be touch and go. This is going to be really close. This is not going to make $3.5 billion or $3 billion, whatever. I don't think it's going to make $2.8 billion. Okay, 2.8 looked like it was a done deal quite a while ago. It's going to have to get 2.7 and a bit to beat this total. It's going to be very, very close to beat Avatar. So it can do it, but it's not looking very easy. And again, it looks to me like it won't do it. I'm saying I don't think it'll actually beat Avatar if this holds up, but it's going to be close. But as per normal, we'll have to see what happens with the box office. We have the Memorial Day weekend coming up in the US market, so that'll give it a little increase. But I have got my increase on here, okay? I think it'll get about $4.7 million on Monday, so I have got that factored in, so that's not a little bit of extra money that we can say that I don't actually have calculated, unfortunately. But we'll have to see what happens. Maybe it can still beat Avatar. I'm starting to think that it probably won't. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.